Welcome to Farm Connections. I'm your host, Dan Hoffman. On today's show, we learn more about the importance of broadband service to rural Minnesota. We'll talk to a policy expert and visit a local business which relies on high-quality connectivity. Kent Tese gives us an update on Farm Bill producer payments, while Commissioner Dave Fredrickson talks land and water use issues. Stay with us. Farm Connections is next.
Welcome to Farm Connections with your host, Dan Hoffman.
Brought to you in part by Absolute Energy, a locally owned facility producing 115 million gallons of ethanol every year, proudly supporting local economies in Iowa and Minnesota. Absolute Energy, adding value to the neighborhood.
To help us learn more about broadband and internet service in rural America and rural Minnesota is Bob Young from the American Farm Bureau Federation. Bob, welcome to Farm Connections.
Great to be here. Great to be here.
Well, tell us about this thing called broadband. What is it?
Well, you know, I think folks in town certainly know what broadband is. It is basically the ability to transfer large amounts of information electronically from point A to point B and let somebody else do stuff with it and send the information back to you.
Well, when you say in town, are you insinuating that service isn't available everywhere?
Well, certainly it's not. USDA basically has got data that would say that about 67% or so of farm households have access to the internet of some form or another. It might still be the old dial-up, cat screech modem, but they've got some access to the internet. That means that about a third don't have any access to the internet at all. In today's day and age, this is a big deal.
1/3 is a large number.
It is.
How does that impact that rural family or that rural business?
Well, you think about everything from, the business that they're trying to run. You think about the kids in the house that are, still got to turn in their homework assignments and can't do it because they can't get to the internet. They can't get to the internet to get the information to get the homework done to begin with. But for the farmers, it really is a big deal and becoming an even bigger deal as time goes on. We're talking about gathering huge amounts of data on each field. That data needs to be turned from data into information and then actionable intelligence that they can use to farm better, farm in a more precise way. And if we're going to talk about not being able to move that data back and forth, we're just basically leaving these guys in the 20th century.
Are you saying that someone that doesn't have internet would be at a competitive disadvantage?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We're going to talk about, I really think over the course of the next 10 to 15 years, this ability to talk about precision agriculture, to know, what's going on literally within a half-inch square on that field and have data on those half-inch squares across that field to know exactly what nutrient is needed, exactly when we need to talk about a different pesticide application, exactly when where we can talk about higher plant population densities than others. This is going to make a big deal. This is going to be, modest estimates that I've seen would suggest 15-20% increases in yields as we move down this road.
What programs exist to help us get broadband and internet into the rural communities?
Well, a variety of programs exist. We do have at the state level, Minnesota has done a fair amount of work to try to get some state funding into improving broadband access. We've also got at the national level, there were some packages that came out of remember the old stimulus package? There were some funds there. There's also the Universal Service Fund, that when you look at your phone bill, there's a little line down there that says USF. And that was originally put in place for us to provide telephone access to everybody in the country, and that's now been broadened and used for internet access as well.
How do we impact policy to make internet more accessible and more affordable?
Well, I think we just have to continue to carry the message. We need a fair amount of capital investment to be able to make this happen. It is that kind of, last mile service that needs to be provided. We also need in rural America and in agriculture in particular, where we need to talk about the Internet of Things, which is basically machines talking to machines, and is becoming an ever more important part of agriculture, where the combine talks to the sprayer, talks to the planter, talks to the tractor. We need that kind of broad area access, not just a line going into the farmhouse, but that broad area access out in rural America as well.
Well, in addition to agronomy and global positioning and knowing what's happening per square inch, Isn't internet used for banking and other data transfer?
Absolutely, and in rural America, the educational abilities that it provides for us, and the healthcare benefits as well that it provides. That, you know, we're seeing in many parts of rural America where the hospital's closing down, but we still have the healthcare needs in those small communities, and the internet and the ability to get that kind of distance medicine is really what's kind of providing that. But if you don't have internet access, it's not helping out much at all.
Thinking about the next year, Bob, what strategic things do you have in place to help move this initiative forward to get internet into the rural communities?
Well, you know, we're going to continue to work with, you know, there's some issues on when we talk about wireless access, for example. There's some issues on some frequency spectrums, and we're certainly having a lot of conversations with the Federal Communications Commission to talk about those kinds of issues. Again, we are talking about looking at the Universal Service Fund, and are there some different ways that we can talk about that fund being applied and being made available for these kinds of activities, et cetera. So we've still got a lot on the books to try to move this forward.
Well, we need internet in rural countrysides.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for the work you do and joining us on Farm Connections.
Appreciate it very much.
Stay tuned for more on Farm Connections.
My name is Kent Kelly. I'm the general manager for Fortune Transportation, and we're located in southwest Minnesota, a couple miles out of Windham, Minnesota. We are a refrigerated carrier. We haul for several companies, mostly food products. We work for Kraft, Land O'Lakes, Nestle Foods, Schwann's Ice Cream and Food Company, and Anheuser-Busch. Products we ship mostly is cheese and ice cream, pizza, beer, obviously for Anheuser-Busch, and any other food product that requires refrigeration. We will do vegetables and fruits during the fruit season in the southwest part of the country. The area we cover is roughly a rectangle from North Dakota down to New Mexico, over to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and up to Chicago, Illinois. So kind of the central states. Well, we made a decision about 11 years ago whether or not we were going to stay in Windham, and that was based on the ability for WindhamNet, our local ISP, who a couple of years previously had brought fiber to every house in the city. One of the first two cities to do so in Minnesota. They agreed to bring fiber out to our facility, and that allowed us to stay here. Without that, we would not have been able to do so. Up until that time, it was a real challenge, and it actually was a deciding factor whether or not we could continue to operate out of this location. Bringing fiber in actually made that possible, and so our issues now are not a challenge as far as slow internet. We do face it with some of our customers in outlying areas, but that's a problem on their end. We don't suffer from a lack of connectivity. 24/7 we can track our trucks. Every 15 minutes we get a position report on where our trucks are. And we can also track all our trailers so that we can be efficient both with fuel economy and with servicing our customers. When a driver arrives at a shipper, he sends a message to our headquarters here that he's arrived. We automatically report that to our customer, and so they know without anybody making a phone call that we are on time and fulfilling our contract of delivering that load in a safe way. We have a tracking unit on every trailer. Since 9/11, food safety has become a completely different challenge. And so we need to know where our trailers are at all times and that they go from the shipper to the receiver directly. And every trailer has a seal on it. Our ability to see where our trailers are let us know that the food that we deliver is safe for people to eat. And so we become part of the safety effort in our food delivery system. We get our orders through a system called EDI. We haul 600 to 650 loads a week, okay? A customer, Schwann's or Land O'Lakes, will offer us a load from their database and send it to us. Our planners see that load tendered to us. They hit a little radio button that says accept and process it, and we send a reply back, we will do this load, we've just signed a contract. We haul 600 loads a week as a company 480 to 500 of those loads come through that system without any human interaction. They don't call and ask us if we would like to do it. There's no conversation back and forth. All that happens instantly from their database to our database. And it's a system that just creates efficiency that you just couldn't get by answering. You couldn't take 600 phone calls a week. It's just impossible. We need a call center just to do that. And the problem is the person making that evaluation of whether we can do it needs to know if we have the capacity to haul that load. That requires a decision-making ability, and they can't take that many phone calls and make that many decisions because of the time lag required to answer the phone. And so this electronic method of offering contracts and accepting them allows us to increase our capacity to haul more loads. I mean, without that, we just would cut our business in half. If there's one thing to take away from what we do here is that connectivity is absolutely vital to growing businesses in our area, in the rural area, because it levels the playing field.
Being able to communicate with your fleet, your customers, and your vendors is critical to the successful operation of rural businesses. Coming up next, Kent Tesey gives us a picture of what the producer payments look like for this year and how they are structured differently in this recent Farm Bill.
Thanks, Dan. As we end 2015, crop producers in the upper Midwest are facing some of the tightest cash flow conditions that have existed in corn and soybean production for many years. Even with higher than average crop yields expected for most areas in 2015, rapidly dropping grain prices have kept margins very tight. One positive note that will help the ending 2015 cash flow position for many crop producers in Minnesota and Iowa is significant farm program payments from the 2014 crop year, which are being paid in October of 2015. As part of the 2014 Farm Bill, farm operators were given the choice between the county-based ag-risk coverage program based on county yields, the individual ag-risk coverage program based on individual yields, and the price-only price-loss coverage program. Over 98% of the farm operators on their corn and soybean acres in Minnesota and Iowa chose the ag-risk coverage county yield-based program, so we'll focus our discussion on that option of the farm program payments. The ag-risk county coverage county payments are based on what the actual yields are for a given crop year, such as 2014, compared to the 5-year average benchmark yields for that county. Similarly, the prices are based on the average market year price from September 1st of 2014 through August 31st of 2015, with those prices finalized in September 30th, again compared to 5-year average prices. The market year average price for 2014, which ended on August 31st, was expected to be $3.68 per bushel. This means that most farmers on their corn-based acres in southern Minnesota and northern Iowa will get from $70 to $80 per corn-based acre, with less amounts per base acre in other areas of Minnesota. For soybeans, that average price is going to be about $10.06 a bushel, and depending on county yields, ranging from $0 to $50 an acre. Again, these payments will likely be subject to a 7% sequestration reduction by the federal government. Some non-farmers question the importance of USDA farm program payments to grain producers and feel they may not be necessary. However, unlike past farm program payments, which were paid to farmers regardless of actual yields or prices, the 2014 Farm Bill authorizes payments only in years when crop yields and grain prices are well below the 5-year averages. This occurred for both corn and soybeans in many areas in 2014, resulting in the farm program payments. I'm Kent Tesey, and we'll see you next time.
We're at the Krell Farm north of Blooming Prairie, Minnesota for the Southern Minnesota Land Use Expo. And with me is Commissioner of Agriculture, Dave Fredrickson. Dave, welcome.
Good to be with you, Dan.
Dave, what messages did you hear today?
Well, I didn't hear one message. I heard several messages today, all of the way from manure application to tillage, just an incredible day out here, and what a beautiful day it is, standing out here in this freshly harvested wheat field. A great day. New technology is it's incredible. I mean, I started farming in 1974, and things have changed, and I exited in 2000. Just in the last 15 years, it was the incredible change in technology, and we saw examples of that all day here today.
Well, it was a wonderful panel of legislators, and also Minnesota Pollution Control Agency was represented. What really came of that panel discussion, though? I mean, what's our takeaway today?
Well, I think the takeaway is that, you know, the people that are out here today they're involved, they're active, they're totally involved. I indicated early on that farmers don't farm in the aggregate, they farm individually, and all of the individual farmers that are out here today, I would guarantee are doing best management practices across their individual operations. But when we test and test water, we test in the aggregate. We don't test individuals, and so we have that conflict, I think, going on, and I think you hear it. The farmers are frustrated, saying, you know, the one young man said, you know, that there's an attack on agriculture, and I think, you know, yes, maybe, but the whole concept here is a good defense is really a good offense, and this story needs to be told, and today it was being told in spades out here.
Well, from the demonstrations and also the producers that are here, I heard the story of, we're really trying, Commissioner. We're doing what we can to protect the water, the soil. We drink the water off our land. We have wells here. That seemed to be a message they were sharing.
Well, I think so, and I think most people understand that. And I think the criticism that agriculture gets is individual, and it's individual as it relates to farming practices by some people. And I think what, you know, let's put it this way, the big issue for the legislature will be 3 issues over the next 10 years. Water, water, and water. And so get ready. People are concerned about it. They're concerned about fishable, swimmable, and drinkable. And we can't walk away from that. Agriculture can peacefully coexist with the environment. We have to look at ag policy not just from an economic perspective, but an environmental perspective and a social policy perspective. Those 3, I think, fit very nicely together. They're not mutually exclusive, they're mutually inclusive. And we just have to do that and come forward with good arguments about the good things and good examples about the good things that are going on in agriculture today. I mean, I look back to, you know, 1974, the year I came back to the farm. My dad's health was failing. I left a teaching career and came back to the farm. And as I look back now, I think, boy, how could have I been so stupid as to have missed a good environmental practice that I just sort of ignored in 1974. Times have changed. These young kids that are coming into farming today, they get it.
They're very in tune.
They totally get it. It's these old guys like me that have to be taught and taught again.
Well, give yourself more credit than that. But certainly we know that water is life-sustaining, and without water, we've got trouble. And in our state, we've got many, many food producers that rely on our water supply. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely, absolutely, it's correct. And farmers are the primary recipient of the benefits of water. And so I don't think we should even waste time saying, well, we use the water first. Most intelligent people understand that. Let's get some examples of the good things that we're doing out here and get them out in front.
Well, speaking of that, one of Governor Dayton's main objectives or agenda items was buffer strips. What's happening there? Where do we go from here?
It's part of the law. The governor, you know, when the governor moves an agenda item, you can pretty much guarantee at the end of the legislative session there's going to be something in there because the governor has the veto pen. And so he wanted that, and he worked very hard, and it was a compromise. I was intimately involved in working with farm groups. It was my job to go and see if we can't get these guys to sit down at the table and talk to us about it. And we did, and bless their hearts, they said, yeah, I think we can do this. I don't think we can do that, but we can do this. And so we moved forward with an agenda that at the end of the day was acceptable. And when you have, as I have said many times, when you get the Farmers Union and the Farm Bureau and the corn growers and the soybean growers, just to name 4 of them, all standing shoulder to shoulder and said, we can work with this, it's hard to be denied.
Well, thanks for shepherding that
Well, I didn't do much. John Jaski and Sarah Stroman from DNR and the Board of Water Bowser Board were very instrumental in the negotiation of that. My job was just to sit down with the farm groups.
Well, we heard some today about feedlot permitting. How can your agency be of a help if somebody wishes to do something in the livestock sector?
Well, that's not our wheelhouse issue. That's MPCA's, but we continue to dialogue with MPCA, talking about the importance of animal agriculture. John Linkstein, the commissioner, is he's a colleague and a personal friend, and so we meet bi-weekly. We talk about issues that are important to agriculture and important to the department or Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. And so that dialogue is ongoing on an every couple of week basis. We sit down in our office or their offices, what's on the agenda. And I think people should know that we work very closely together. And if there's an issue relating to feedlots, bring those issues to me, and I'll guarantee you I bring them to Commissioner Stein.
Well, in the 60s, relations with Cuba changed greatly in our country. We've had some federal changes in that respect. What is Minnesota and MDA doing to position our farmers and our agriculture in a good way?
Well, thanks for asking that question. We're looking very closely at a possible trade mission to Cuba. I was thinking about that just the other day, and you say in the 60s. It was actually 1962 October that the Cuban Missile Crisis occurred, and the reason I remember it so well is I was a PFC in boot camp at Fort Leonard Wood in October when it looked like we were going to war, and so I have a clear memory of that.
I'm certain.
And now it looks as though I'll be leading a delegation to Cuba in early December on a trade mission. So things have really come full circle for the country, but for me on a very personal level. Wow. So I look forward to that. I think it's important. I think times change. People change, and I think it's time to move forward and normalize relations, and the president is moving us in that direction. It's a great opportunity we all want to be first in line down there. All of our neighboring states have organized trade missions to go to Cuba. North Dakota has, Wisconsin, Iowa, they're all looking, Nebraska, they're all looking for opportunities. Presently, we do about $10 million worth of trade with Cuba. We've looked at the market, and the market looks like we could do 50, maybe million on an annualized basis. Not huge, because you have to remember there's only 10 million people that live on that island. We have 5.5 nearly in Minnesota, so it's twice the size of Minnesota. So the upper limits of that opportunity are kind of restricted. Now, on the other hand, the governor's leading a trade mission to Mexico in the second week of August. We do about $700 million worth of business with Mexico.
Puts it in perspective.
It does put it in perspective. It's a great market. We should be there, but it's not going to be a home run. But we need to be there. We have things that they need, and they probably have things that we need.
It's important, and good luck on that.
Trade's a two-way street.
And good luck on that journey.
Thank you.
Thanks for representing us.
Oh, yeah. My pleasure. Good to be here.
Thank you, Commissioner. Stay tuned for more Farm Connections coming up next.
Exploring career opportunities in agriculture. Ag 101. Funding for Ag 101 provided by the Ag Star Fund for Rural America.
Hi, we're joined with Cody O'Halloran from Olivia, Minnesota, with the Bold FFA chapter. Welcome to State Convention.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. We're going to learn a little bit about your career path. And so I hear you're a senior in high school. Tell me where you would like to go to college in the fall and what you're majoring in.
Okay, I'm thinking of going to the University of Minnesota in Morris for a pre-vet program down there.
Okay.
Yep, and then that's a lot of the animal science, so I'll major in probably something like that. So.
Yeah, so what interested you in animal science?
I really got interested in that because of the small animals contest with FFA.
So Cody, you mentioned the small animal CDE career development event. What exactly does that mean, and what do you do in that event?
We do quite a bit in that. We start with a written exam with a bunch of multiple choice questions, 50 of them, and we have 45 minutes to work on that. And then when we finish that, we go to an anatomy practicum and So we have that, and then the math, nutrition, and health and diseases practicum all together. And we have 45 minutes to work on all of that. So it's a lot of information, but it's a lot of fun.
So Cody, you mentioned going into the animal science degree area, and having been an animal science major, some of the other career pathing that you could go into would include working for industry or companies such as Cargill or ConAgra or Pfizer or the Schwann Food Company, personally, that I experienced with. And that could be areas such as ag communications or working in pharmaceuticals of the ag companies, animal pharmaceuticals, nutraceuticals, also consulting, agronomic areas as well, understanding the plants that have to go to feed the animals. Those are different career pathing opportunities that you could go into with animal science understanding. Also technical writing of the animal science areas and fields. Because you understand the animal science side, you could write for publications that are ag industry publications.
Yeah, that is interesting. I've never thought of working for something like that, but that's major, so.
So I do wish you the best of luck with all of your accomplishments here, and it is an honor to receive the state FFA degree and also with your animal science degree at the U of M Morris. So good luck with that, and I know you'll do far and great things with animal science.
All right.
Congratulations, Cody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me for another episode of Farm Connections. I'm your host, Dan Hoffman.